Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And we are discussing Chapter 24 of Ship of Destiny, Traitor for the Vestrit Family. It's Chapter 24, but I was looking at it and in my ebook, we still have almost 300 pages to go, 250 pages. So
yeah, 900. This is page 587 in my book, and then the last page is 901. So
nice, 350 for you, just about. So we're still.
That means there's got to be a couple chunky chapters.
Yeah, probably.
Let me see what number.
I think there's 40 something chapters.
That sounds right. 40, exactly.
40, okay.
Unless I missed one. Sometimes that happens.
Maybe an epilogue if there's.
Oh, sorry. There's epilogue, metamorphosis. It's only 2 pages. 903. Okay.
All right. Well, this is chapter 24. And then there's 41 total. We got another 15 after this.
That's way more than I thought. I don't know why. I mean, if you visually look at my book, we are over halfway through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're definitely over halfway through.
But it feels like saying that there's 15 chapters left. That doesn't feel halfway through. I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah, we're going to get there. I mean, we're going to get there in April sometime, I think. Maybe May, beginning of May-ish.
Yeah.
It also depends on how many 2-part chapters we're doing.
Yeah, we'll see how many long chapters there are in between now and 40. Yeah.
But for now, chapter 24, we are back with the Vestrits, and with Keffria specifically.
Yes.
They have moved back into the Vestrit house, and they have some guests living there too. As we find out, Eki and Sparse Kelter are staying there in return for food, which is mainly fish.
Yes.
And Keffria at the moment is trying to regain control of her life and scrubbing out and cleaning the house. Specifically, her and Kyle's room, which she saved to the end because she didn't really want to touch it at all. And now she's going in, cleaning out everything and sitting there and looking at how bare the whole room is. But again, in cleaning it, she's feeling a certain amount of control that she hasn't felt in her life for a little bit.
Right. And I think this is really big for her. She's actually thinking on the events of what has happened, what's going to happen in the future, and just really trying to get over this surge of emotion she's having right now with sitting in the empty room. Because when they first come back to the house and she checked this room, the bed that she shared with Kyle, their dresser, all of their clothes are gone. And then the only thing left are some of the curtains because some of them have been taken, but the ones that were left were shredded. So it's just really everything was taken, and it's much more real now that they're back in the house. And I think that's a really sad thing that we haven't really touched on a lot, as how the Vestrit home has been destroyed. Mm-hmm. And it's by people they probably knew. Yeah.
Or, Bingtown is a rather large city as well, so it could be by other people, but the trader houses are kind of removed from the city proper. So
right. And I think part of it, especially my comment on it being people they knew, comes from the fact that they were labeled as traitors, not like traders, they're traitors.
Yes.
And so I feel as though that would make people even more incensed to go to their home and destroy it or loot because they don't deserve what they had.
Yeah.
And that's just a lot to deal with. I mean, they're already dealing with, they're, I guess, technically still in the middle of a war with Chalced, kind of, even though for now things are peaceful, but they're dealing with all of that on top of the fact that they've lost basically everything except for the walls of their home.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't really have any furnishings at all anymore. She says the room is empty, clean, and slightly cold, rather like her life. Refilling and restoring the room and her life suddenly seemed like a waste of time. Perhaps it was best to keep both as they were now, uncluttered, simple. Her mother ducked her head into Keffria's room. There you are, Ronica exclaimed. Do you know what Selden is doing? Packing, Keffria answered. It won't take him long. He hasn't much to pack. Ronica frowned. You're letting him go? Just like that? It's what he wants to do, she replied simply. And Jani Khuprus has said he would be welcome, and that he can stay with her family. What about staying with his own family? Ronica asked tartly. Keffria rolled her eyes wearily at her mother. Have you talked to him? I did. I'm sure you heard the same things. He is more rain wild than Bingtown now, and changing more every day. He has to go to Treog. His heart calls him to help the dragon in her quest to save the serpents.
So I know that I'm really harsh on Keffria. But yeah, I'm not loving this decision of hers. And I feel like I always have to preface my Keffria hate with, I'm not a mom. I don't know what being a mother is like.
But also, you are a reader and you know what you feel about these characters.
Yeah, and
So let's dig into it, Emma.
I really don't love that she's sending her kid away, and it's sort of framed as this, well, he knows what he wants to do, so he can be free. Like, I would never say this about a real person, but this is a book character, so I feel comfortable saying Keffria is a horrible mother. She has been a horrible mother from the start. She has not gotten better.
No.
And her type of motherhood is the kids seem alive. They're fine, which like to some extent is okay, but not to the extent that she takes it, which is really hands off and very much she likes being a mother in that they give her cuddles and she gets to like say, oh, I have cute kids. But it feels like she's one of those out of sight, out of mind moms.
Yeah.
And I think this especially just, I want to root for Keffria. I want to like Keffria. I love this journey she's going through. She obviously has a lot of things that happen in her past.
She has matured emotionally as well. It just goes to show that her character, even if you mature, even if you get better as a person, does not mean you become a better parent.
Yeah, it just really feels like she had kids because that's what she's supposed to do. She doesn't actually want to take care of kids. She doesn't want kids.
Or I thought of this as well. She is very down on her own life and down on her decisions that she's made in life and doesn't know where to go from that. So I think she doubts her own decision-making regarding her own kids.
Yeah.
I think she really lacks the confidence in her own ability and so is therefore happy that her kid wants to do something and will be safe with another family she trusts.
Right.
So I think it goes hand in hand with your like, oh, she's not really a great mother because she's like, oh, first opportunity, get the kid off of my hands because I don't trust myself. But It is a decent decision regarding Selden. It's just if it was any other kid, it would have been an awful decision because Selden, yes, he's 11 years old or something. He's really young, but he's also creepily mature because of the dragon magic and stuff.
Right, because he's all the memories of the other cities. And like, I know I'm being harsh and I know obviously she has her own stuff to work through and she doesn't have the self-confidence, like you said, to like trust her instincts and her mothering ability. I just think it's really disappointing to see that she's trying to grow in herself and her decision making, but then her relationship with her children never grows. It stays where it was at the beginning of the book to me.
I disagree with that part.
Okay.
I think in the beginnings of the book, she was even more hands off, and now she's actually. If this was in the beginning of the book, she would never let Selden go. This is kind of what Malta wanted. You know, like she wanted to do her own things. She wanted, to know more things, whatever, more knowledge. And Keffria was always like, no, you're a kid. This is her acknowledging, I think a little prematurely, but I already said it's kind of all right because of the magic.
Right.
acknowledging that, yeah, Selden is a person with wants and needs and a mission now, even though she doesn't understand it.
Okay, yeah.
So I agree with you that she's not a great mother, but I think this is the correct decision in this moment for Selden.
Yeah.
But other than that, I kind of agree with you.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm disappointed that that isn't fixed. And obviously, I guess that's realistic, right?
Not
Like,
everybody can be perfect or grow up into or fill all of the deficiencies that they had
yeah.
to begin with.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a very high standard to hold her to be perfect. And I don't want to do that. And obviously, there are a lot of factors going into how she is and what is happening. But I think especially this Ronica being like, hey, like maybe we shouldn't let the heir to the family go. Like we want to keep him and also just keep him with his family. And she rolls her eyes and is like, he wants to go. Why wouldn't I let him go? And she's acting like a teenager. I don't know. It just, I don't know. It's fine. It's her life. I just personally, I'm sorry that I'm harsh on her. I'll try not to be that bad the rest of the chapter. I just needed, especially with this intro too.
You can be as harsh on her as you want. It's like we said, it's a fictional character.
Yes.
You know, this is character critique.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, I don't love that. And I do want to like Keffria. I do want to be rooting for her the whole time. And I have been, I feel like rooting for her. I just feel like this chapter made me feel like
she's taken some of the wrong lessons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Veronica is continuing this conversation saying, you know, he's too young. He's far too young to be making these sort of decisions for himself. And she's just saying, like, I'm letting him go. It's been hard enough to reach this decision by myself. Don't bring it back up again. Because you think it's the best thing for him to do? Veronica was incredulous. Because I don't have anything better to offer him. Keffria stood with a weary sigh. What remains in Bingtown to keep him here? Let's go down to the kitchen. It's warmer there. But not as private, her mother countered. Eki is down there cleaning the day's catch. Fish for dinner. What a surprise, Keffria feigned. She was glad to shift the topic. So they explain a little bit here that they've taken in boarders to feed themselves. So again, that's what I explained at the beginning of this episode. Eki and Sparskelter are staying with the Vestrits because their homes were destroyed during the fighting, but they're getting fed in return.
Right. And there is the temporarity of it because the Bingtown Council has decided that the people, well, first of all, Three Ships families just get land, but then all the tattooed people who work on rebuilding Bingtown will also earn land as well.
Yes. And they're complaining that the council needs to get a move on so they can start parsing out the land and start building.
Right. Yeah. Because right now it's winter-ish. It's turning into winter. It's colder. And so, you know, obviously a ton of building doesn't happen in winter. So they're talking about how Eki and her family would have already started on building a new house if it weren't for the new traders slowing down the land discussions.
Yeah. Ronica says, they slow down all healing. Without slave labor, they cannot possibly work those huge grants of land, but they persist in claiming them. I think they merely try to make it the starting place for their bartering, Keffria replied thoughtfully. No one else recognizes their claims. Companion Cyrilla has shown them the language of the Bingtown Charter forbids such grants as Satrap Cosgo gave them. Now they clamor that Jamelia must pay them back for the land they have lost, but as the grants were written as gifts, Companion Cyrilla says they are owed nothing. Devochet lost his temper when they tried to debate that. He shouted at them that if they think Jamelia owes them money, they should go back to Jamelia and argue it there. Still, at every meeting of the council, the new traders complain and insist. So they kind of continue on, and Keffria continues on very astutely. She is really certainly grown in that aspect.
Yeah.
She's actually come to monitor what's happening in Bingtown rather than ignoring everything.
Right. And she knows the intricacies of each of the groups and what they're wanting. And
so When spring is coming and coming soon, they'll realize that they have lost their slave labor and they don't have any workers anymore. So eventually, they're going to have to come to their senses and probably just leave.
Right. And not only that, but they're going to learn what the Bingtown people have been telling them all along, which is you cannot farm just any land in
Yeah.
this area.
Works for a year or two, and then it becomes mud because you broke the clay topsoil.
Yes. So I thought that was really interesting too, that not only are they missing all the labor that they had before, but they also are going to be on top of swamps because of the bad farming practices that they did coming in without listening to locals.
Mm-hmm. Ronica says that some of the new traders understand that, and I've heard many of them plan to return to Jamalia once travel is less dangerous. And again, Ronica is here like, oh, I think that'd be best for them. Not really kind of eschewing the everyone must build a new Bingtown together kind of thing and being like, oh, good riddance to those people.
Right. Go back home if you don't like it. That's Ronica. No, I think the situation is really interesting, and it is interesting to hear Cyrilla's stance, even if it's just a quick mention, that she's kind of not giving the new traders anything.
Yeah.
She's not, she could have said, yeah, you're right, Jamalia owes you money. No, she says, no, actually, you don't get anything. None of this was above board, so.
She's really trying to solidify her allies in Bingtown now.
Yeah.
Right? Like that she's taking their side 100%, so she's always accepted in Bingtown.
Yeah.
You can kind of see that through the
right.
the lines here.
But I do think it's interesting that Keffria has sympathy for them in a way that the other people in Bingtown don't seem to, because, you know, she starts off by saying, I think this is just where they're starting their barter and nobody's treating it like that. And they want to walk away with something, right? And Ronica mentions, you know, their hearts weren't ever in it. They left their wives and heirs at home. They just took their mistresses here.
They just wanted money.
Yeah. And so it makes sense that they'd want money to leave. But there's not really a ton of money in Bingtown right now. So kind of barking up the wrong tree.
Keffria is kind of sour that they're going to leave messes for them to clean up once the new traders do leave, and also probably leave their new trader mistresses and bastards in Bingtown because, you know, she feels sorry for them because they're just going to go back to their wives and heirs.
Yeah.
So these families are going to be stranded here or maybe go north.
Along with some of the tattooed.
Are talking about maybe going up to the Six Duchies.
And I find this really interesting. So Keffria says about the Six Duchies, it's a hard land, almost barbaric, but they feel they could begin anew there without having to sign agreements. They feel that becoming Rainwild traders under Jani's terms would be too restrictive. So I just wanted to point out that the way she's talking about the Six Duchies is exactly how Fitz thinks about the Mountain Kingdom. Yeah. Like, oh, they're up north, they're barbaric. Mm-hmm. They barely live in normal lives, but I guess some people want to rough it. I just find that so funny.
Yeah, we've talked about that, I think, in Ship of Magic, too. The first book, they talked about how the Six Duchies don't have glass in their windows and they're barbarians up there. Mm-hmm. And, they even have women sailors.
Yeah, which is so funny because the Six Duchies find themselves to be so civilized. Mm-hmm. I wonder, though, if the people of Bingtown would think that about, what's the name of the duchy that Regal is from?
Tradeford?
Yeah, I wonder if they would think that about Tradeford.
Probably not. They'd probably think, the one bastion of civilization here.
Right, but the places on the coast are a little bit more rough and ready.
Yeah.
So I get why they're like, ooh, that place.
Ronica's saying like, well, when everyone who wants to leave is eventually safe to do so and does so, then we'll be closer to the original spirit of Bingtown and everything will settle down. It might take a year or two, but we're getting there.
And then we can heal. Mm-hmm. And I think that is true to some extent. You know, people are there not because, all the people that will be there because they want to be there. They've chosen to stay. They've chosen to make this life work, and they've chosen to be part of the community. I think that is true, that will help with the healing
Yeah.
of the society. But obviously, with how dangerous things are, the people who don't want to be part and don't care about the future of Bingtown are still here, and it is making things difficult.
Yeah. So this next part of their conversation turns more towards gossip. And again, Ronica kind of says like, oh, you seem pretty informed. And Keffria takes that as an unvoiced but deserved rebuke once her interests had centered only on her own home and children. The gossip at the council meetings is endless. I am out and about more than I used to be. There is less at home to claim my time. Also, Eki and I talk when we are cooking dinner. It is the only time she seems completely comfortable with me. She paused. Her voice was puzzled as she asked, did you know that she is sweet on Greg Tanira? She seems to think he is interested in her as well. I didn't know what to say to that. Her mother smiled almost indulgently. If Greg is interested in her, I wish them the best. He is a good man and deserves a good partner. Eki could be that for him. She is a solid person, blunt but good-hearted, and knowledgeable about the sea and those who sail. Greg could do worse than Eki Kelter. Personally, I had hoped he would do better. Keffria poked at the fire. I hoped that Althea would come home, come to her senses, and marry him. Then Ronica replies, well, I just hope that she comes home.
Right.
Which takes a little bit of a sad turn. But I want to talk about that conversation because it still shows the attitudes and sentiments of some of the people there that are trying to forge this new Bingtown. Eki has been extremely belligerent towards the old traders. We've seen that in a couple chapters here. Very accusatory and doesn't like them for reasons. So we get a reminder that the only time she seems comfortable with Keffria is when they're cooking and talking together because it's a shared task. Right. And then in the same breath, we have Keffria going like, well, Greg could do better than her.
Right.
There is somebody better, my sister, because she's more implying that she's better born or,
Right.
a better person than this mere 3 ships immigrant family peasant.
Right. No,
it's really funny that those attitudes are still existent, even with Keffria being a little bit more measured in her response and thoughtful about the new traders.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's a good look into ingrained habits, ingrained ways of thinking. She was raised thinking away, so it's not going to go away overnight.
Yeah, I really appreciated that about Robin Hobb's writing here, that it didn't disappear with, we're forging a new Bingtown, now everyone's best of friends. No, that's still not how it works.
No, even with good intentions, you can still mess up and fall into old habits. And I think that's a nice, addition. But I also, sorry, I'm going to be harsh on Keffria again, but I also hate that she's like, oh, I thought Althea would come to her senses. And it just makes me sad because Keffria really doesn't know her sister.
No.
And in Keffria's mind, the one thing Althea could do to be better is settle down with a good trader man and be a good wife, which is frustrating because she herself is going through this sort of realization that there's more to life than just being a wife that hosts parties, I guess.
Yeah, but I think it's that she finds herself at fault for not trying to do more, but also sad that she might have chose the wrong man. But if she did it all over again, she would choose a different man, maybe be a little bit more involved, but she would still settle down, become a wife, and have kids,
right. But I think that's the thing to me. It's frustrating that she is having this like sort of self-growth where she's realizing she has value, she has worth, and there's things that she has to learn, and she's begrudgingly learning them, but it's still in her mind like a woman still has a place, and that's with a husband making babies. And I know that's a little bit harsh. That's not what she says, and that's not exactly, I don't know. It's
not exactly what she means or is trying to imply, but that's what you get out of it from this day and age kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's just frustrating that she realizes like, oh, hey, a woman could be more, but not too much more. Like there's still nothing better than marrying well. And I think that also rubs me the wrong way. But, you know, her mom takes it a different direction, saying that she just hopes Althea comes home, which really highlights the reality that Althea is on a dangerous mission right now.
And the rest of their family too have
Yeah.
been missing.
And Ronica says, she hopes every day that everyone just comes home, no matter how they get there, that they come back safe. And then Keffria sort of goes, even Kyle, which is kind of crazy because I don't know why Keffria is trying to pick a fight here, but she decides
I don't think she's trying. I think you're I think you're reading into the tone in that. She says, after a long silence, she asked in a low voice, "Even Kyle, mother, are you hoping he will come home?" Like, I don't think it's trying to necessarily pick a fight, but actually learn her mother's feelings on Kyle, because she doesn't know her own feelings on Kyle at this point.
Fair. I'm being harsh.
So, like, she could be trying to poke the bear, She could be trying to be like, you don't like my husband.
Right.
But I think it's really trying to get a grasp on where their relationship is at and where her relationship and thoughts on Kyle are at. Because she doesn't know, and she talks about it, or at least debates it in her head a little bit too. Because Ronica says, if you want that, and if that's what you're hoping for, then I hope for it also. And it seems heartfelt to Keffria. And Ronica continues saying, like, well, he's been missing for a while. You could just declare yourself a sea widow and mourn. So you
right.
could,
And
you could do
marry
that.
again, and
Yeah.
nobody would fault you.
But Keffria is, again, this is where that question comes in. And that's why I read that question, like her questioning Ronica as a kind of a sounding board to try to make sense of her own thoughts, because she doesn't know what to do. She has a rising wave of misery engulf her. She doesn't want to declare herself a widow, and yet she doesn't want Kyle to come back and take everything from her newfound independence.
Right.
So it's very confusing, I think, for Keffria at the moment. So that's why I read that statement a little bit different.
I guess I think it. Okay, I don't think that she's on purpose trying to start a fight. I should clarify what I mean. I think Keffria and Ronica have had a bad relationship for so long that it's in her nature to poke at a peaceful conversation with something that could potentially start an argument.
Yeah.
And I think the heartfelt reaction from Ronica allows her to open up and actually examine what it is she's feeling. So I feel like
Okay. Yeah.
I read the start as sort of like a even Kyle. And then her being like, "Oh yeah, I actually don't know what I hope either. Like I'm really struggling, mom, help me." But I feel like, because like we said, habits die hard.
Right.
So I think it is sort of there's this moment where things are getting too heartfelt, and so she sort of pokes the bear expecting a fight.
That could definitely be the case. Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, so that's, I guess I should have been more clear, because as you were talking, I realized I made it sound like I think this whole thing was supposed to be a fight, but I don't think that. And I don't even know if I think she did it on purpose.
It's just
like,
kind of
just
reflex.
a habit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of like, oh, I'm going to say something thorny. And she does really open up to her mom about how she's feeling, and how honestly all she wants is an answer. Like, she just wants to know if anyone is alive or not, so that then she can go forward.
Mm-hmm. She says, when I married him, it was because he was so commanding. I was so sure he would take care of me. I'd seen how hard you had to work while father was gone at sea. I didn't want that sort of life for myself. She looked at her mother and shook her head. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings. It doesn't, Ronica said shortly, but Keffria knew she lied. But when father died and everything changed, somehow I found myself living your life anyway. Keffria smiled grimly. So many details, so many tasks to be done, until I felt there was no time left for myself at all. The odd part is, now that I've taken up the reins, I don't think I can put them down again. Even if Kyle appeared on the doorstep tomorrow and said, don't worry, dear, I'll take care of it all, I don't think I could let him, because I know too much now. She says that she knows herself, and she knows that she's good at the things that she's been doing now. She knows the creditors. She knows how to deal with these things better than Kyle could because she's from Bingtown. Well, I mean, he is too, but like,
Yeah. I think that's the big thing, is that not only does she now realize she has talents in doing these things, but she realizes how much better at them she is than Kyle, and that she has a better understanding of what is needed to be done, and he just doesn't. And I feel like that's pretty fair, because if he lives out at sea most of the time, he doesn't know what land life is like. He
right.
doesn't know the inner workings, even barring the fact that he's not from an old trader family. He just doesn't know what Bingtown life is like, because he hasn't lived Bingtown life probably since he was a boy.
Mm.
Because, you know, in families like that, he probably was on a ship since he was what, like 8 or 9, because he's a ship's boy, I'm sure he started out as. So I think it's fair for her to say, you know, he just doesn't understand, and I do.
Yeah.
I think that this aspect of Keffria, it's really great to see her growth, but it does make me frustrated that it like highlights the part of her character that I don't like, which is that she was so willfully ignorant and really felt as though it wasn't her problem because it didn't directly affect her. Like, she really didn't want to deal with anything until she was forced to, because that just seemed hard. And I just really, like, personally have an issue with people who go out of their way not to do things because it seems hard. I don't know. It just like
Right.
rubs me the wrong way. So I don't love that, but it is good to see that growth of, yeah, I didn't want to do it, but now I have done it,
Yeah.
and I know, and I don't want to go back to not knowing.
She ends it with, "Do you hear how I am now? I don't want to have these burdens, but I can't bear to turn them over to anyone else either, because despite all the work, I like being in control of my own life." "With the right man, you can share that control," Ronica offered. Keffria felt her smile go crooked. "But Kyle isn't the right man for that, and we both know that now. If he came back now, I wouldn't let him have the family vote on the Traders' Council, because I know more about Bingtown and can vote more wisely. But Kyle would hate that. I think that alone would be enough to drive him away." Kyle would hate that you had control of your own vote? That you had to be able to take care of yourself while he was gone? Keffria paused a moment before she answered. She forced the truth out. "You would hate that I was good at it, Mother. But I am. And I like being good at it. It's one reason I feel I should let Selden go, because in his short years he has shown me that he is better at taking care of himself than I am. I could keep him here, safe by me, but it would be a lot like Kyle keeping me in hand." Then we're circling back around. There's a little tap on the door, and Rach summons them down because Jani is there, and they kind of mention that Keffria mentions that Rach is looking for her own property and excited to build her own house, but
Right.
she's still being a house servant for the Vestrits at the moment. But yeah, we circle back around to Selden and that conversation of, "I made poor decisions,
Right.
so I don't want to be like Kyle, and I'm letting my 11-year-old boy
Make his own decisions.
make his own decisions."
Me, a grown woman, getting married and having my husband do everything for me is the exact same as my 11-year-old wanting to do something. And me telling him no because I'm his mother. So I'm going to let him go free and fly into the wind, because he's better at raising himself than I could be.
See, this storyline would make a lot more sense and hit a lot harder if Selden were 14 or 15.
Yep.
And it's kind of like that because he went through the weird dragon dream thing, but he's still 11.
But the thing is, Keffria doesn't understand the magic that has
Right.
aged him.
Yeah, I'm talking from reader's point of view.
No, yeah, from reader's point of view. But I want to say that, like, I think as a reader, that's why some people can overlook it, being like, well, he's more mature. But she doesn't understand that, right? She just thinks he's a little weird now that something happened to his brain. She doesn't understand that he literally has more life experience now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes me angry, because to her, he's just a kind of weird 11-year-old. And she's like, well, I couldn't raise him very well, so I'm going to let him go free. And I just like, that's the part I don't like, because from her perspective, well, he's 11. He knows how to handle himself.
In his
No,
short years, he has shown me that he is better at taking care of himself than I am. And I mean, yeah, that's self-reflection that she is a bad mother because she
Yeah.
didn't do anything during these books at all. But still,
he's
like you can,
11 and you're
that-
allowed to say, hey, that's not a good choice for you.
right? And
Let's work on, yeah.
yeah, the self-reflection is I can become better
Mm-hmm.
and do a
Not,
better
well,
job.
I'm washing my hands of it. Too late.
Right. Anyways,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I think that's why I'm frustrated. And it's not that I don't understand. And obviously it works out for the best. And again, this is a fictional world. Things are different.
Does it work out for the best? Selden
I don't
goes
know.
through absolute
Horrible things.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, in this moment,
Right,
it's fine.
right.
But I just don't love the whole idea of like, well, I don't know. It just is really frustrating. And I can't get behind it. But also, I do want a quick backup. Why is Ronica surprised at the idea that Kyle would hate Keffria keeping her own vote? Ronica, number one, doesn't like Kyle. Number two, thinks Kyle's way too controlling. And number three, has seen how he acts when people don't obey his will. Why would she ever think that he would see Keffria wield her own vote and be like, yeah, I guess it's hers? Like, what about him makes it surprising that that would be his line in the sand? You know what I
well,
mean?
one, Ronica is very traditionalist, very like old trader. Like, well, that's the old trader always says the vote. And two, I think she's just asking questions to keep the conversation going.
Sure. Okay.
I think the surprising one would be like he would hate that you had to be able to take care of yourself while he was gone. I think that's like the actual question, you know?
Yeah.
Because that is surprising from someone that doesn't know Kyle that well or as well as the spouse would.
I guess. Yeah. And it is sad because I feel Keffria is right. That,
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle would prefer them to be destitute and struggling so that he could sweep in and save the day rather than his wife and mother-in-law succeed without him, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But anyway, like you said, Rach is at the door because Jani has arrived and she has gone through some changes. So, like you said, she's more excited to potentially get her own parcel of land. She's talking about the type of house she's going to build. But not only that, she's actually more open with the Vestrits and lets her feelings be known a little bit more. And in this moment, that means she lets Keffria know that she's pretty disappointed that she's allowing Selden to go with Jani to the Rain Wilds.
Yep. We switch over to Jani's point of view now. She is waiting nervously for Keffria. She's looking around at the Vestrit household and thinking that it's changed quite a bit. Room was clean, but the furniture had obviously been scavenged from throughout the house. There were chairs to sit on and a somewhat wobbly table. But there were no books, no tapestries, no rugs, nor any of the small domestic touches that finished a room. Her heart bled for the Vestrits. Their home had been taken from them, only the walls remained. And she kind of thinks on her own situation that, yeah, there's going to be tough times ahead, but she always had her household to fall back on. She has her treasures and her trinkets and her furniture and all of her clothes and everything like that safe and sound in the Rain Wilds.
Right. And worst case scenario, she can sell those things, but the Vestrits don't even have that.
Yeah. It made her feel all the more selfish that she had come to take away the final vestige of the family's true wealth. Their last son would go with her tonight. It had not been put into words between them, but the truth was writ large on Selden's scaled face. He was Rain Wild now. It was not Jani's doing. She would never have sought to steal a son, let alone the last of their line. It did not make her feel any less greedy that she cherished the thought of taking the boy with her. Another child for her household was a treasure beyond compare. She wished she did not have to gain it as her friend's loss. I'm very curious if there was any question about the Festrus fostering Selden,
Yeah.
because Colwyn Festru was much closer with Ronica.
Mm-hmm. She also lost her daughter, right?
I think so. I'm not sure, but I guess Keffria's closer with the Khupruses through Malta and Rain's betrothal, kind
Yeah.
of ish
Well,
betrothal. They're courting, and they are the richest family, so it's safer to send him there. But the Festers are just kind of left on the wayside, and they're like, "Oh, new, shinier, better Rainwild friend. Here we go."
well, I kind of feel as though Keffria wasn't part of the whole
Yeah,
ritual between the Festrus and the Vestrits until that very last
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
few.
Like maybe
Yeah.
Keffria just knows
Yeah.
Jani
Because
better.
Janie seems to think that Keffria and herself are friends when she said she hoped or she wished she didn't have to get a new child through her friend's loss. I feel as though that's talking about Keffria more so than Ronica.
Yeah,
Not that I'm sure they don't also find each other friends, but I think that Keffria and Janie are probably closer in age and both have children that are
right.
still young. So I think there is a little bit more of that friendship bond there. And especially after everything they've been through, and with Malta and Rain's betrothal and all that, I think that's why. To
Mhm.
me, it just makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I do kind of wish they were brought up, but I understand why the Festrus are not super mentioned.
Yeah. So Keffria, Ronica, and Rach enter the room. Selden is not with them, and Janie thinks that's good for now before, like I need to make my proposal while he's not in the room. So we know that there's something upcoming in this chapter that she is going to propose in, not really in trade, and she doesn't want to make it seem like it's in
Right.
trade, but she has a proposal for the Vestrits. Keffria walks in and asks if she wants any tea or refreshments, and then turns to Rach and like, if we have anything resembling tea. And Rach says that she'll make something up, and she leaves the room. And they have some small talk, commiserating on the weather for a while.
The harsh winter.
Mm-hmm. Rach reappeared with a tea, and Ronica points out, well, let us stop being as nervous as if we do not know why Janie is here. She has come to take Selden to the Rain Wilds when the Kendry sails tonight. I know Keffria has agreed to this, and it is what Selden wants, but... And there Ronica's courage failed her. Her voice went tight on her closing words. But I do hate to lose Selden. I wish you did not feel that way, Janie offered, that you are losing him, I mean. He comes with me now, for a time, because he genuinely believes he has a duty to help us in our preliminary work. Certainly the Rainwilds have marked him as their own, but that does not mean he is no longer a Vestrit. And in days to come I hope for a time when Rainwilds and Bingtown will mingle freely and often. That brought little response. Selden is not the only reason I am here, she added abruptly. I also bring two offers, one from the Rainwild Council, one from myself. And then Selden enters the room. I'm ready, he announced in undisguised satisfaction. Why is everyone so quiet? He demanded. No one replied.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an awkward transition there for Janie, and also a good distraction with Selden coming in the room
Right.
and like a child being like, I'm ready. Wait, why is everybody so quiet? It's again highlighting that he is a child,
Yes, yeah.
but it is a little bit of an alleviation of the tension that's in the room.
Janie tries the tea. She says it's actually quite delicious. And knows that there's something missing with everyone so tense, and so she starts the formal ritual. I, Jani Khuprus of the Khuprus family, of the Rainwild Traders, accept your hospitality of home and table. I recall all our most ancient pledges to one another, Rainwilds to Bingtown. As she spoke the old formal words, she was surprised to feel tears brim in her eyes. Yes, this was right. She saw an answering sentiment in the faces of the Bingtown women. As if it were a thing rehearsed, Ronica and Keffria spoke together. We, Ronica and Keffria Vestrit, of the Vestrit family of the Bingtown traders, make you welcome to our table and our home. We recall all our most ancient pledges to one another, Bingtown to Rain Wilds. Keffria surprised them all when she spoke on alone. And also our private agreement regarding the Liveship Vivacia, the product of both our families, and our hope that our families shall be joined in the marriage of Malta Vestrit and Jani Khuprus. She took a deep breath. Her voice shook only slightly. In sign of the link between our families, I offer to you my youngest son, Selden Vestrit, to be fostered with the Khuprus family of the Rain Wilds. I charge you to teach him well the ways of our folk. Yes, this was right. Let it all be formalized. Selden suddenly stood taller. He let go of his sack and came forward. He took his mother's hand and looked up at her. Do I say anything? I, Jani Khuprus of the Khuprus family of the Rain Wilds, do welcome Selden Vestrit to be fostered with our family and taught the ways of our folk. He will be cherished as one of our own, if he so wills it. Selden did not let go of his mother's hand, instead set his free hand into Jani's. I, Selden Vestrit of the Vestrit family, do will that I be fostered with the Khuprus family of the Rain Wilds. He looked at his mother as he added, I will do my best to learn all that is taught me. There, that's done, he added. That's done, his mother agreed. So I read a lot, but I kind of wanted to read that because it's the last formal meeting that we have in, I think, all of these books. I don't think we get a formal, like, Bingtown to Rain Wilds
That's fair. I feel like there's
ceremony.
a little bit more of the formality in the meeting, the next Rainwild trilogy with Malta in front of the council in the Rainwilds.
Right, yeah.
I think that there's some formality there, but you're right otherwise, that this is the last one we see between Rainwild and Bingtown people.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's technically Bingtown, I guess. But Rainwild people claim all people who become scaled as Rainwilds. So.
True. But yeah, so I think it's very interesting to default into that comfort zone of making it a ritual, of making it something traditional, to feel as though this is more formal and a lot, and like kind of detach the emotions from it.
Right, but also make it a lot more binding because that's where all of their most sacred and most ancient pledges, as they say, really comes into contact. It binds them for generations. So it's right. Kind of, it is a comfort for them, I'm sure, because it binds them to take care of Selden. And it's not just like, here, have my son. It's, we're making a pledge to teach him, and I'm pledging to give away my son to you to foster him for a while in those ways.
Yeah.
It's putting it into writing, even though it's just verbal in their eyes. But again, yeah, you mentioned how Selden comes into the room and it highlights how much of a kid he is, but then he kind of immediately picks up on what's happening, picks up on the verbiage, and immediately goes into a very adult-like promise.
Yes. And I think it's also a little weird that he talks the exact right way in this moment, because as far as we know,
it's the first time seeing it ever.
Yeah, he doesn't really know about the agreement ritual. And I don't even know that it's something that a boy of a trader family would be taught, because I feel like it's pretty expected that the women handle this part of the Rainwild agreements.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
But I guess magic and stuff, so he gets it. And he does well by holding on to both Keffria's hand and Jani's hand. So a strong, smart young boy for Jani to take.
Jani glanced down at his rough little hand she held. It had already begun to scale around the nail beds. He would change swiftly. It was truly for the best that he went to the Rain Wilds where such things were accepted. For an instant, she wondered what her young daughter Keese would think of him. He was only a few years older than she was. Such a match would not be unthinkable. Then she set aside the selfish thought.
Okay, again, if she's just a few years younger than Selden, that puts her at what, like 7? Because we're saying he's 11.
Yeah.
A few could mean 2 to 3. So I guess she could be 9.
9 to 8. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, bro, I know that they only lived to 40, but isn't that pushing it a bit? Well, anyway, she sets that thought aside and decides to get on with the propositions she has for the Vestrit women that she talked about earlier.
Yes. So she offers her personal offer first, saying that you can come with us. You can live with us in the Rainwilds if you wish, you and Ronica. I do not promise you that times are easier there, but you would be welcome in my home. I know you wait for news of Malta. I too await the dragon's return. We could wait together. Keffria shakes her head and says, I've spent too much time waiting in my life. I won't do that anymore. Bingtown Council must be pushed into action, and I am one of those who must push. I can't wait for them to settle Bingtown's unrest. I have to insist daily that all complaints be considered. I'm sorry, Selden. He gave her a puzzled look. Sorry that you will do what you must do? Mother, it is your own example I follow. I go to Trehog for the same reason. You let me go, and I let you go, because we are traitors. There was a sudden loosening in Keffria's face, as if an unforgivable sin had been expunged from her soul. She heaved a great sigh. Thank you, Selden. Goes to show that she does have a lot of tension in her mind about this decision, and it did come to her very difficultly, but yeah, we've discussed the decision already.
I'm still critical of the decision, but I did want to point out that I think it's really interesting that Keffria, who we saw Keffria as in the very beginning of the book to now, is completely different. She not only wants to help rebuild Bingtown, but wants to help push the government into action and make
very
sure
Ronica of her.
Yes, and not only make sure that her interests are dealt with, but that of everyone. And she wants to make sure that they're being nice to all of the people.
Yeah,
which is very open-minded of her, considering her background and who she is. But I mean, hey, she's all for equality, and she wants to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. And
yeah, the sudden step into the politics of everything is a little bit iffy for me. We talked about like Malta's growth and Selden's growth and how some jumps feel not super earned. And her first jump into politics was literally desperation to save her kids, right?
Right, yeah.
And that made sense to me, even if it was like, Keffria, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And she like insisted that she didn't know what she was doing either, but she just all of a sudden offered these things. So maybe even with the offer, she's like, oh, I could do this. And maybe the growth comes from there. But really, her only involvement in politics is 1, her offer to the Rainwild Council, and then 2, stepping in front of everybody and insisting Tintaglia kills her.
Yeah.
There's not much. There's a lot of time that's passed, so maybe she's stepped in more. But we haven't seen that growth or even really heard about it.
Yeah, I think my trouble is, where did she get this equality mindset? I guess she had to have always had some sympathy for people that weren't old traders because she did marry Kyle, right?
Yeah.
So she is aware of the plight of people who are not old traders. I don't think that's super unrealistic. However, it's crazy to me that she goes from thinking slavery is fine to being like, I need to stay to make sure everyone's voice is heard. Because like, whoa, that's a lot of growth to happen in Check's watch a month. So like, she was still calling them slaves at the first meeting with Tintaglia, I'm pretty sure. Now she's calling them the tattooed.
Right.
And that's great. And I love to see the growth. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great that she's acting this way. But like you said, where is that growth coming from? Why don't we get to hear of or see any of it ourselves? And
I guess it's kind of hinted at that she spends a lot more time out and about and with different people, but still, it just kind of comes out of nowhere for me that she wants to be so politically active.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
but Selden forgives her, and Ronica agrees that, yeah, I'm going to have to stay as well. Keffria is the trader for the Vestrit family, but I must look after the rest of our interests. We have other properties, and we're going to need to find some people to farm those eventually when spring comes.
Right. And while she takes care of Bingtown, I have to take care of the home. So,
Yep. Jani shakes her head and is like, yeah, I expected you to answer that. Indeed, so the Rainwild Council told me you would say that when I told them of my plans. Keffria's like, why are you telling the Rainwild Council about us?
yeah, why would they care?
Jani would keep it to herself that the council had been as anxious as she to lay claim to Selden Vestrit. This, like, oh man, I dislike the Rainwild traders so much.
Okay.
Just like
elaborate.
they just seem like, oh, this is really weird to say, but like they seem like caricatures of like child snatchers, just like give me all your children. They're just so greedy about it. I don't know. I totally understand why it's like their greatest treasure. If they only live to 40,
Right.
their population is dwindling. Yeah. Why are the council, like the political governing people, want to claim one boy when they're getting a full influx of population? I get it. They think that, he's becoming scaled. He has a link to the dragon. He's theirs. That's the weird part.
Yeah.
Why are you laying claim to this child that is not yours?
Yeah. The government involvement is a little weird.
Yeah. I get it from like a family perspective. Like, yes, you want new people to come in. You want your population to grow in terms of a city. You want your family to thrive.
Right. And especially like when it's just Jani,
Yeah.
she can't have very many children, and it's really hard to conceive children in the Rainwilds. And she's
Yes.
probably old enough to where that's not really an option anymore anyway. So getting
I get
another
that.
child, that is
The
exciting.
government coming in and being anxious to claim this 11-year-old because he started growing scales and speaking in dragon dreams is weird. Like, that's
Also weird when you consider the fact that if this had been before Tintaglia was around, they would have been like, ooh, he's been lost in the memories. He needs to die.
Right,
Like, his
He's in
knowledge would
danger.
not be appreciated.
I don't even remember if I'm probably missing some context. There might be more about that in the Rainwild Chronicles in the future if the government is more involved with Selden. But the way that it's talked about in this trilogy is that Selden's just going to go live with the Khupruses and not have any involvement in the government, but the government really, really wants him to come live in the Rainwilds for some
Yeah.
reason and then just ignores him. Again, I could be wrong. There could be more involvement later on.
I feel as though whenever he's on his diplomatic meeting to Chalced,
Yeah.
that has something to do with the Rainwilds. Not just the dragons,
Oh, you
but
know what I thought? I also believe they want him there to speak with Tintaglia
yeah.
and kind of be the go-between there, and that makes sense. I just kind of thought of that and
Yeah.
reconciled it in my mind a bit. That makes a lot more sense to
But
me.
He does, I think, become a diplomat. Like he is
Yeah.
in some ways trained. I don't know.
Oh, he's trained through the memories, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. But I feel as though something about that, unless he was captured, because
He was, I think,
but
imprisoned and turned a slave.
yeah, but I don't know why he was in Chalced to begin with. I don't know, like, because they didn't just take him from Bingtown. You know what I mean?
He was on
Or
a boat
Rainwilds.
somewhere,
Yeah.
but I don't remember.
So I don't know. I feel as though
Maybe he was on the way back from visiting the Six Duchies because he appears in next
that's
trilogy.
right. He is part of that. Yeah. Could
I
be.
don't know. But yeah, that's like a 12-year-old boy going to the Six Duchies or something
Yeah.
as a diplomatic mission.
So yeah, I think they clearly see potential in him. It is weird.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it is a
super
little
weird.
weird. But okay, so this is the thing. I think for reading, you do have to have that suspension of disbelief.
Right.
That like the main characters are literally the main characters in the world. And this is one of those moments where, like, when you think about it, it is really weird. But if you didn't think about it, just be like, yeah, okay. One of
Yeah,
those
it's
suspension moments.
just that like throwaway line of, because it's not really mentioned again in this book, I don't think, but the council really wanted to lay claim to Selden Vestrit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they can't.
Relax a little bit.
Anyway, they
Yes,
have a
anyways.
proposal for Keffria specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and that is that they want Keffria to be their voice in Bingtown when they're not around. And it's because she had such a good impression on them.
Yeah.
And Keffria's kind of shocked that they want this and asks why. And Jani does remind her of the last meeting she attended, where she offered up this big gesture of putting herself in danger
To
and
spy, yeah.
to spy. And even though it didn't happen, because obviously things were way different than they thought they were, and a lot of things happened in between then and now, she still offered and was fully willing to do it. And that really went a long way to people feeling as though she has their best interests at heart.
Yeah. Janie says that the Rainwild Council needs an official voice in Bingtown. And Keffria's like, but they've always been able to come and go and speak on their own behalf. Why now? And Janie says, we disagree. Changes are raining down more swiftly. Our communities will need to cooperate even more closely than we have in the past. Message birds can only fly so swiftly. Liveship traffic on the Rainwild River has been reduced in these dangerous times as all our ships patrol against Chalcidian vessels. Yet more than ever, we need a voice sympathetic to Rainwild concerns here in Bingtown. We see you as the ideal choice. Your family is already strongly linked to the Rainwilds. While we would ask you to seek our advice when you could, we would also trust you to speak out when an immediate voice was needed. But why not one of your own here in Bingtown? Because just as you and your mother have told me, they need to remain close to their homes in this troubled time. And Selden chimes in and says, yeah, it would be perfect, Mother, for the dragon will need your voice here as well. You could help to make Bingtown see the necessity of aiding her beyond any agreement we have signed.
Yes. So definitely trying to tweak it a little in his dragon's favor. But before that, I do want to mention something you skipped over, which is Janie also says, besides, in many ways, you are now one of our own, as another reason why Keffria was chosen. And I thought that was really interesting with like, hey, we have a lot of connections with family now, and you are one of us, which is so far removed from the very beginning of the book where the Vestrits were the only trader family that didn't do deals up the Rainwild River. And I think that's pretty big.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about that actually.
Yeah.
There was I think a thread on our Robin Hobb on Reddit, the Robin Hobb subreddit, recently asking about, I think it was something about Ephraim or why they didn't trade up the river or something like that. And one of the reasons was because he kind of believed that, the blood plague came down there, but it also believed that dealing in the past treasure would be cursed, kind of haunt them.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want to forge any more ties because he realized that the more people traded up the river, the more they're tied to Bingtown. And it's Keffria, I think, is like, what? He wanted to maybe leave Bingtown in the future or like leave that option open for families.
Yeah.
And now here's Janie saying, your family is already strongly linked to the Rainwild. So Ephraim's dream of having his family be free to choose where to go is just kind of completely torn asunder.
Yeah.
Now
all that work for nothing.
Yeah, the Vestrits are kind of completely locked in to Bingtown now.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, I don't think anybody but Althea would want to be away from Bingtown.
Wintro.
Wintro, yeah, fair. But like everybody else, and I guess Selden.
Yeah.
But everybody else is kind of happy and content being in Bingtown forever. And
Malta leaves.
Well, only because she has to because of the dragon. And even then, I feel like that counts as staying with the Rainwilds.
No, I'm saying that like Malta and Rain moved to Kelsingra.
Yeah. I count that as part of the Rainwilds because they claim control.
Yeah.
She's only there because that's a better place to be for the dragons.
Mm.
And like, I don't know. I guess so in my mind, she counts as somebody who is fine not leaving because
Right.
she would have stayed if she was able.
Yeah.
She needed to leave for the dragons, though.
The kind of reason I was bringing it up, though, is because all of the Vestrits have left Bingtown. Ronica and Keffria are the last ones.
Yeah.
They're not going to have any more kids.
True.
And so when they're done, the Vestrit family is just out of Bingtown forever.
But Loki, isn't that just what you said that was never happening because that's what?
Yeah, but it's really weird because, well, like you said, Malta is technically still in the Rain Wilds, so we still kind of count it there. Selden is out and about with dragons. Althea is still going to come back to Bingtown and still live there, and they have a kid. She has a kid with Brashen, so maybe he'll find a family in Bingtown.
Yeah.
But the Vestrits are given so much power in this book series. Keffria is entrusted with speaking for the Rain Wilds. She's going to be one of them prodding the new government along.
Yep.
And
the founding of the new start to Bingtown.
Ronica has really close ties with Cyrilla now, or at least in general, compared to everyone else. And Cyrilla is going to be an ambassador to Jamalia. Malta becomes an ambassador to Jamalia. She's also like the princess of the Elderlings.
Yeah.
And then we have Selden, who is speaking for a dragon. And then Keffria also speaks for the dragon in Bingtown.
Yeah, whenever Selden's not around.
Yeah. And that's like, and Paragon and Brashen and Althea get all of the wealth from Ygritte's treasure.
Yep.
So like, they have all of the power.
Yeah.
This story is just about like the Vestrits becoming a superpower and then leaving town.
Well, that's why we're following them.
Yeah, I don't know. Just weird. Just a weird story.
Yeah.
How everything kind of ends up in their hands.
To be fair, Keffria could remarry and have another kid, I think. She's probably in her 30s still.
Yeah, we talked about that. Maybe like
So,
early 30s.
Not that, like, if she doesn't want a kid, she doesn't want a kid, whatever. But
Right.
there is potential that she could have another child.
I just don't see that happening.
No, well, we know it doesn't happen, but.
Right. Well, Keffria's kind of forgotten.
Yes, so maybe it does. Maybe that's why.
She's disowned, actually.
She's disowned because she married somebody that they didn't like.
Yeah.
The hate still runs deep.
So Selden chimes in like, yeah, Keffria. Well, it says mother, but...
You okay?
Talk for Tintaglia in town, too. Jani looked at him in surprise. Even in the well-lit room, she could see Selden's eyes literally glowing with his enthusiasm. But Selden, there may be times when the dragon's interests are different from the Rain Wilds or Bingtown's, she cautioned him. Oh no, he assured her. I know it is hard for you to believe that I know these things, but what I know goes beyond who I am and back to another time. I have dreamed the city that Tintaglia spoke of, and it is grand beyond imagination. Compared to Kasserek, Frengong was humble. Kasserek? Frengong? Frengong is the elderling name for the city buried beneath Treyhawk. Kasserek is the city you will excavate for Tintaglia. There you will find halls built to a dragon scale of grandeur. In the Star Chamber, you will discover a floor set with what you call flame jewels. In a mirror of the night sky on Spring Eve. There's a labyrinth with crystal walls, tuned to mirror the dreams of the ones who dare it. It gets a bunch of descriptions here, and everyone's kind of looking at him like,
Okay, freak.
yeah, okay.
I do. Before we move on and talk about anything else, I do want to talk about, these are some sick ideas that are being dropped by Selden about what is in this city.
Right.
What potentially is still preserved. And I think they're so cool, and it makes me so upset because we never get to see any of it.
Right.
And then it makes me wonder, so Kasserek, Treyhawk city, was so cool, had all these amazing...
Frengong, you mean?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Frengong, under Treyhawk, had all these amazing treasures. And then Kasserek's going to have all these really cool treasures. And then Kelsingra kind of has nothing. It's been looted. Obviously... It's out in the open. It's not in a particularly hard to get to place. It's not in bad terrain like the other cities are, like as Levshall is even. So there's less. But like they don't have any magical rooms that are like
They
still
find
cool.
stuff there. Remember, they find elderling clothing. They get the gloves to
Yeah.
handle the skill.
Yeah, okay, you're
There's
right.
the hot springs that they get working
For the dragons.
for the
yeah.
dragons. Yeah. So I think it's
We just
like the things that he's describing are chambers and, like built sculptures and things like that. Not necessarily like little trinkets or anything. And I think
No, yeah.
Kelsingra has those, they just haven't been found because it's a bigger city. So it
Okay.
has a lot more homes.
Fair enough. I think I was just disappointed because he's explaining these like two really cool
Right.
locations, and we have seen Kelsingra, and we don't really get any cool things like that.
Yeah.
And that makes me, it's more like
It's big-
government buildings. I don't know. And then the hot tubs, which I guess hot spring is cool, whatever. But like,
Well,
it's
these
not
were-
the rainbow hall where you get to go against your worst nightmares and your dreams. Like that's sick. That's so sick. I don't know.
Well, these were the cool cities,
True.
That one was the
They were the art-
capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were
This is like Soho. This is the art district.
exactly. This is where the dragons came to cocoon and everything,
True, yeah.
Art of rebirth and all that kind
All
of
that, yeah.
stuff.
All the
Rent
artists
was a little
lived there.
bit cheaper, so all the artists flocked to these areas, and they made some cool stuff.
And then they were destroyed before it could be gentrified, so
Yeah,
all the cool
exactly.
stuff remained. I get it. Oh,
He speaks and says, "The wealth that the dragons will bring to us will surpass all coin. It will be a reawakening of the world. Humanity has become a lonely race and dangerously arrogant in our solitude. The return of the dragons will restore balance to our intellect and to our ambitions. Not that they are perfect beings, oh no. That is our value to one another. Each race presents to the other a mirror of presumption and vanity. In seeing another creature's rash posturing of control and superiority in this world, we realize how ridiculous our own claims are." So this is what I was talking about last episode, where Selden introduces this idea that they kind of bring balance to one another, the humans and the dragons.
yeah. I think the reason I thought Beloved was the one who said this is because it feels like such a beloved thought to me. Like,
He might say something similar.
but also
yeah.
it's odd that Selden feels this way to me. Like, is this how the Elderlings felt? Because it kind of feels like Elderlings worship dragons in a lot of ways. And this
They
doesn't
did.
feel like worshiping a dragon. This feels like we're all equal and this will help us see that, which doesn't feel Elderling-esque, where he would have gotten the memories. And it feels really mature. I don't know. It just feels like a weird thing for him to have said.
Well, I think our knowledge of the Elderlings world isn't very nuanced either, because we see very brief glimpses of how it was. So there's bound to be a lot of differences and philosophers and
Right.
people thinking differently. And some people might blindly worship dragons, and some are probably like, this is annoying. I have to do this as a job. Otherwise,
Right.
I don't care about dragons. Like there's
Yeah.
going to be differences between peoples back in the day. So
Good
maybe
point.
he got a little bit more varied education through his past lives, the past memories that he's
Right.
kind of absorbed. Of course, silence follows his words, and everyone's like, okay, this kid is weird. And Jani's like, his vocabulary is kind of insane for a kid his age.
Was this the dragons doing?
Yeah.
What had they released back into the world? Which, again, is, I want to point that out as they just think he's a crazy 11-year-old. They're like, whoa, weird how he's talking so mature. They don't understand that he genuinely does have that intellect. Even Jani, who understands that people can get memories from underground, doesn't
Yeah.
understand that he has that knowledge in him now. So I like,
well,
that's
Jani doesn't fully understand that either, remember? Because
Oh,
she's
yeah,
not
yeah.
one who's super susceptible to it.
but her husband died.
Yes, but she doesn't know that it's any more than whisperings of a madman, really.
Okay.
She just started to believe that Rain wasn't crazy when Malta went missing and a dragon flew out of the ground.
Fair. Yeah.
This whole time it was, oh, you can drown in the memories, and yes, you can get memories from things, but they were never useful.
Okay.
It just made the person mad.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
So I think it is a very new concept for Rain Wilders, and the other people are just like, good riddance, go to the Rain
Yeah.
Wild.
Fair enough.
Selden is very insistent, like, yeah, no, you have doubts, but you'll see. Welfare of the dragons is in everyone's best interest. And Janie's like, okay, yeah, we'll see. We'll just have to trust your mother.
Yep, we'll just have to trust her judgment. Like,
Yeah.
okay, crazy.
And Keffria is, again, she's kind of wavering on that position. It's like, I don't know if I can do this. That's a lot of responsibility. And Janie's like, yeah, totally understand. So you're going to be well compensated for this. But, we don't have a lot of coins. So
At this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about, for now, you take some household goods in payment instead? Do you think that we could work out a suitable exchange? And a spark of hope kindles in Ronica's eyes. I am sure we could, Keffria replied almost immediately. I can think of no household goods that we could not find a use for. So Janie is very well pleased with herself, so Keffria agrees to this position, and it doesn't feel like she purchased Selden away from them.
Yes.
With this offer. She gets to supply her friends with things that they absolutely need. She gets the representative for the government. She gets Selden, and everyone feels happy and well compensated, and like they lucked out.
Yeah, which is the best outcome for a trader.
Yeah.
So she's pretty happy.
She set a hand on Selden's shoulder, taking care that it did not seem too possessive.
And then says, when we reach Treyhog, Selden will have to help pick out what he thinks you will like. Which, I don't know if I'd trust an 11-year-old to design my house, but,
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I don't think Keffria and Ronica are too picky, though.
I mean, yeah, I guess they have nothing, so anything's better.
They just get a bunch of dragon carved things.
Yeah. A race car bed or 3.
I was going to say dinosaurs, but I'm like, dragons are right there.
Yeah.
So.
I guess they don't have cars. A race carriage. Race carriage bed.
There you go. Oh, yeah, this is a weird chapter because it definitely sets up a lot of future book politicking.
Yes.
And like the roles that people play in the future books, the roles that the Vestrits play in the future books.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't do too much rather than wrap up some loose ends.
Right.
Which is nice. We're kind of over halfway through this book, the last book in the trilogy. You need some loose ends wrapped up. You need some plot lines kind of complete so you can deal with the more exciting lines.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's just kind of other than that, it's just kind of a filler chapter
Yeah.
on our way to the more exciting lines.
Yeah. It's fine.
Keffria makes you frustrated, which is why it's only fine.
I think, this chapter specifically really highlights the things I don't like about Keffria, but I do still think it's good to see her take action. I'm really proud. Like, I don't think I'm very good about talking about the positives of the character because it's easier to articulate the negatives, but the positives, I mean, I feel like it's great that she is taking an interest in something and that she is taking ownership of her life and
feeling that she is good at something too.
Yeah. And not only that, but she is good and she is taking control and saying, I'm not going to wait around for other people to decide what this new Bingtown looks like. I'm going to have a hand.
Right.
And does it. I think that's really impressive. And I really do appreciate that about her. I think that's huge growth. I just don't love other aspects of her, and that's fine. I don't have to like every aspect of every character.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For some reason, it's just easier for me to point out negatives because they feel more fact driven. Like, I mean, not fact, but I can point to parts in the text that explain why I don't like something. Whereas when I like something, I just like it. I don't know. So it's harder.
So, there's I don't know, Rach kind of fades into the background here, but we get a wrap up storyline for her too.
Yeah,
where she's looking forward to having her own house.
Yeah.
Starting a new life here. She's kind of implied that she might still work for the Vestrits in the future.
Yeah, it seems like they're friends and they have that good relationship. And to be fair, she's supposed to just be a worker for them anyway. She's not
Right.
wasn't ever their indentured servant,
Yeah.
but they just didn't have any money to pay her.
Yeah, things in Bingtown are kind of being squared away so we can have the last third of this book about Kenneth.
Yes. Yep, and the dragons and
Hmm.
all that good stuff.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you have thoughts on our character analysis, character critiques, please let us know. isfitzhappy@gmail.com, or you can message or comment on any of our posts on Is Fitz Happy's social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, /X, Threads, YouTube, on Reddit as well, and Blue Sky. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you next week.